I just thought I'd show you something very interesting here. It's something that you might not have seen before. In fact, I don't think you will have seen this. I've got to credit a friend of mine, John Bannister. He's fanatical about using worms for bait. I know we all use boilies and tiger nuts and corn and plastic and this, that and the other, but some of the very basic things are sometimes best. Maggots, you know how good maggots can be. One of the most neglected baits is worms. There's a number of issues why they're not popular. Keeping them is another problem all by itself. The problem nuisance species can be a fair old problem. If you've got perch, roach, eels, you know, you tend to avoid them. Or we may occasionally use them for stalking. Under a float, give it an hour, don't catch anything, give up on the worm. John's took it to a full different degree. He's caught so many big fish on it, loads of big fish, and you'll see in the fullness of time, I guess, with his articles and bits and pieces about the worm. But he was good enough to show me something that I've been carp fishing for 40 years, and the effectiveness of this absolutely blew me away. And I've used it a lot since. I've had a lot of nice big fish on it, and friends of mine that have passed the information on have caught some very nice fish as well. And I'm going to show you a variant on the very basic worm rig, but this is better than the basic one, so I thought I might as well cut to the chase and show you something that I think is dead exciting. It looks unusual, but it works. So if ever you're struggling, you can get this out, and I can guarantee if you've got the patience and the wherewithal to try it, you will catch some fish on it. And what you do, you get some decent lobworms. It costs about 20 quid, I suppose, maximum, to get 100 lobworms. And from 100 lobworms, you get a lot of use in there. You can chop some up, liquidise them, add them to pellets, use them in their own right, use them for stalking again, of course. But what I do is I get about 5 or 6 lobworms, courtesy of John's idea again, chop them up. We call it a worm kebab, and it sounds crazy, doesn't it? So you chop them in about 1-inch sections. Fairly time consuming, but it's worth it. Use a long needle like this one with a hook on it, and what you need is an extended rig, obviously, to mount this lot. It's quite substantial, so you need quite a long hair. I'll show you. This is about, I suppose, 3 inches long. I mean, sometimes you can use it a bit longer than that even. Then I'm going to get the worm. I've got them on the gated needle ready, sort of about 3/4 1-inch length. Stick it through the loop. It's quite a tricky procedure, this, actually, but it's worth it. And pull all your worms down. It's a bit of a messy job as well. There we go. Oh, there they go. Now, can you see? It's crazy, isn't it? But the worms are very strong. You try pulling against them and they want to pull the braid through your fingers. So what I'm going to do is get another rubber stop here. A rubber bead will do, but I'm using a bead off a chod rig. Right, and that's a buffer bead for the casting. So put that down over the gate, slide it into place, pull it in there. Right, there we go. Look at that, that's quite a mouthful, isn't it? Right, and then the next interesting bit is I use these here, these extender stops. Tricky. Right, you can see the worms are exerting a lot of pressure on my fingers. They're actually pulling the bead through. Yep, there we go. See how strong they were? I was struggling to hold the loop because they were trying to pull it out my fingers. Right, now once you pull that into the bead, like that, you can put your worms back down, and that's the worm rig. Right, another point worth mentioning is, with worms, in case you do get a nuisance factor, I mean, I've had catfish last winter up to £52 on these, by accident, and plenty of carp. So you get the odd welcome nuisance, actually, sometimes. But you've got to bear in mind that if you use a heavy fixed lead or semi-fixed lead on a safety clip, you might want to use a running rig. So I would suggest you definitely use a running rig so you get some kind of indication. And that is one incredible rig, I'm sure you'll agree.